Good morning, everyone. I am Metran, and I am here to discuss starting from Rizal's issue of involvement to the Katipunan after his day of execution. So, how did Rizal actually have issues concerning the Katipunan? Upon learning that Dr. Jose Rizal was to be deported and that his works is banned in the country, a secret council was convened in 1972 Arcina Street named Kataas-Taasang Kagalang-galangang Katipunan ng mga anak ng bayan. Katipunan aims the overthrowing by force of the Spanish power and establishing the Philippine nation free and independent. The name of Rizal was used as an honorary president. His name was also been used to gather the members together, and his portrait hung in each Katipunan lodge hall, but all of this was without Rizal's consent or even knowledge. The Katipunan members, who had been paying faithfully for 4 years, felt that it was time that something besides collecting money was done. Their restiveness and suspicious led Andres Bonifacio, its head, to resort to Rizal, feeling that a word from the exile, who had religiously held aloof from all politics since his deportation, would give the Katipunan leaders more time to mature these plans. So, Dr. Pia Valenzuela was sent by Andres Bonifacio to Dabitan to get Jose Rizal's advice and support. In order to hide his true intentions, Dr. Pio Valenzuela bring with him a blind man. Thus, the doctor and his patient appeared on a professional visit to the exiled oculist but end up with not so satisfactory results upon discussion. Rizal indignantly insisted that the country came first. He gave one warning against embarking on a change of government for which the people were not prepared. Education, he declared, was first necessary, and his opinion, general enlightenment, was the only road to progress. Bonifacio, after hearing Valenzuela's report, was determined to push through his plans without the help of Rizal. He called Rizal a coward when he heard his emissary's report and enjoined Valenzuela to say nothing of his trip. Some sources believe that Rizal refused to accept such revolution because of his belief that violence should not prevail. Next is Rizal's last trip to abroad. Dr. Blumentritt wrote to Rizal that there was a great suffering among the Spanish soldiers, so Rizal offered his services to Governor General Blanco to go to Cuba as a volunteer surgeon, a service of humanity which he considered a doctor's duty in the warfare for his sympathy with the Cubans. With the acceptance of the offer on July 30, 1896, by the Governor General, he was set to travel to Manila the following day after a long, peaceful 4-year exile in the cruiser named Espana. Dated August 1, 1896, Rizal anchored at Dumaguete, which is the capital of Negros Oriental, and then Dumaguete to Cebu. On August 3, 1896, Rizal traveled from Cebu to Iloilo, and then from Iloilo, Rizal's ship sailed to Capiz, did a brief stopover, and then proceeded to Romblon until towards Manila. On August 6, 1896, he missed the regular steamer Isla de Luzon, which sailed to Spain the day before he arrived in Manila Bay. While waiting for the next ship for Spain, Rizal was kept as a guest on the board of the Spanish cruiser named Castilla, and this was also the time when the Katipunan revolt broke out. On August 26, 1896, without Rizal knowing, Andres Bonifacio and the Katipunan raised a cry of revolution in the hills of Balintawak happened, also named as Cry of Balintawak. Dated August 30, 1896, the revolutionists led by Bonifacio and Jacinto attacked San Juan but was repulsed by heavy armed soldiers. So Governor General Blanco proclaimed a state of war in the first 8 provinces for rising in arms against Spain. It was September 2, 1896, when Rizal was transferred to the steamer Isla de Panay, which was sailing for Barcelona, Spain. On September 3, 1896, the steamer left Manila Bay and Rizal's trip to Spain began. On September 7, 1896, Isla de Panay arrived at Singapore. However, Rizal was duped. Governor General Blanco, together with the ministers of the colonies and war, exchanged telegrams and confidential messages for the arrest of Rizal upon reaching Barcelona, and that he was a deportee and was being secretly kept under surveillance. Dated September 8, 1896, Isla de Panay left Singapore. On September 27, 1896, he heard from the passengers that a telegram arrived from the Manila reporting execution of Francisco Rojas Ginato and Osorio. September 28, 1896, a passenger told Rizal the bad news that he would be arrested by order of Governor General Blanco and would be sent as prisoner in Cueta. On September 30, 1896, Rizal was being blamed on revolt. He was officially notified by the captain of the ship that he should stay in his cabin until further orders from Manila. On October 3, 1896, the Isla de Panay arrived in Barcelona with Rizal as prisoner on board. He was arrested by former Governor General Eulodio Dispojol, serving now as the military commander of Barcelona. October 6, 1896, Rizal was escorted to the prison of Fortress Morijuich after a few hours of stay in his cell number 11. He was brought to the SS Colon bound for Manila, which was carrying soldiers to fight the Filipino revolutionists. On November 3, 1896, the SS Colon reached Manila and Rizal was brought directly to Fort Santiago under heavy guard. Now on Rizal's preliminary investigation. Proofs of Rizal's guilt had been gathered by Captain Francisco de Olive, and the preliminary investigation was conducted by a special judge named Colonel Rafael Dominguez. After fishing as much evidence as possible, on November 20, 1896, the preliminary investigation on Rizal began, where he was made to classify persons. He was questioned several times among his participation in various political activities, his associations with certain people, and his knowledge on certain circumstances. They questioned him on his membership in the Masonic lodges, on Dr. Valenzuela's visit to the Pitan, on his appointment as honorary president of the Katipunan, on the use of his picture to adorn the secret session room of the Katipuneros, and on the testimonies of apprehended Katipuneros. Presented before him is two kinds of evidences, documentary and testimonial. There were a total of 15 exhibits for the documentary evidences, such as written 6 to 8 years prior to the organization of La Liga Filipina, which the Spaniard alleged to be the cause of the revolution, was his poems, namely Tutalisay and Kundiman, plus also the speeches of the Katipuneros that ended with Long live Katipuneros, long live liberty, long live Dr. Jose Rizal. Among the testimonial evidences were comprised of oral proofs from people namely Martin Constantino, Jose Reyes, Domingo Franco, Timoteo Paez, and even Pio Valenzuela. However, the prefabricated evidences they dug up yielded nothing but flimsy deductions, so they tricked most of the evidences, and Captain Olive even resorted to have Pasiano, which is Rizal's brother, to be tortured to unconsciousness, being desperate to have more proofs of Rizal's guilt, but Pasiano denied Rizal's guilt and silently endured the torture. However, among all the evidences presented, on November 26, 1896, Judge Advocate General de la Peña gave the following recommendations. First, Rizal must be immediately sent to trial. Second, he must be held in prison under necessary security. Third, his properties must be issued with order of attachment, and as indemnity, Rizal had to pay 1 million pesos. Lastly, instead of a civilian lawyer, only an army officer is allowed to defend Rizal. Although given the privilege to choose his own defense counsel, on December 8, 1896, he was given a list of 100 first and second lieutenants and limit him to choose from those to be his defense lawyer. Among all the names, one officer name became familiar to Rizal, and thus he chose Officer Don Luis Taviel de Andrade, which was later Rizal discovered was the brother of Lieutenant Jose Taviel de Andrade, who worked as Rizal's personal bodyguard in Calamba in 1887. On December 11, 1896, he was formally informed the charges against him and he pleaded not guilty to the charge of rebellion, although he admitted that he wrote the Constitution of La Liga Filipina. On December 15, 1896, on Rizal's manifesto, he stated that I had no notice at all of what was being planned until the 1st or 2nd of July in 1896, when Pio Valenzuela came to see me, saying that a uprising was being arranged. I told him that it was absurd, but he told me that they could not bear more. I advised them that they should have patience. Besides, I said that they don't consider me, but our country that will suffer. He will not he did not tell me that my name was being used. Neither did he suggest that I was its chief or anything of some sort. Now the trial. On December 25, 1896, it was Rizal's saddest Christmas. He was confined in a dark, gloomy cell with no idea of what his fate may be. Under his thought, he wrote a letter to Lieutenant Taviel de Andrade requesting a visit before his trial, for there was a very important matter they need to discuss. On December 26, 1896, at 8 o'clock in the morning, the court-martial of Rizal commenced. Little did they know, the hearing was actually a kind of moro-moro, a planned trial wherein Rizal, before hearing his verdict, had already been prejudged. The trial took place at Cuartel de España, a military building with a court composed of 7 military officers, headed by Lieutenant Colonel Jose Togores Arjona. Present at the courtroom were Jose Rizal, the 6 other officers in uniform, and a number of spectators including Josephine Bracken. After Judge Advocate Dominguez opened the trial, it was followed by Attorney Alosur's reiteration of the charges against Rizal, urging the court that the latter be punished with death. The charge was that Jose Rizal Mercado was the principal organizer of the Soul of Insurrection in the Philippines, a founder of societies, newspapers, and books devoted to favoring and making public rebellious and seditious ideas. For defense, Tabel de Andrade appealed to the fairness of the judges who should not be carried away by prejudice and insurrection. He argued that a person could not be organizing the La Liga because its aim was to unite the people for the promotion of commerce, industry, agriculture, and arts. Taviel de Andrade concluded that Rizal's guilt had not been proven legally. Therefore, the accused should be acquitted and all his rights should be restored in the name of justice. The brilliant argument was ineffective in a hostile courtroom, but Rizal was given a chance to speak on his defense. To supplement, impeccably dressed, he took the floor and read his additions to my defense, which he wrote in his cell in Fort Santiago, and stated 12 points to prove his innocence. To further convince the court of his innocence about the rebellion, he argued that if he had known about the date and time of the outbreak of the revolution, he would have taken the necessary precautions to avoid arrest. However, the military court remained indifferent to the pleas of Rizal. His death was certain and by that time he already knew it. He was brought back to his cell to await the verdict. After a short deliberation, that same afternoon, the findings and decisions of the court were forwarded to Judge Advocate General Nicolas de la Peña, who referred it to Governor General Camilo D. Polavieja for confirmation on the same evening. The next day, the governor's approval of the verdict and the consequences released the order for Rizal's execution. On December 28, 1896, Polavieja signs the death verdict. On December 29, 1896, Rizal was formally notified of the court's verdict, which is that he was to be shot at sunrise the next day through musketry at Bagumbayan at 7 a.m. Now, Rizal's last few days and the execution. After the death sentence was read to Rizal on December 29, with the guard's permission, he sent a note to his family saying, "I should like to see some of you before I die. Though it may be very painful, let the bravest come. I have some important things to say." It was a busy day for him. The following are the order of the visitors with the time they came. At 7 a.m., Rizal was transferred to the chapel cell adorned by religious images to convince him to go back to the Catholic fold. His first visitors were Jesuit priests Father Miguel Sadera Mata and Luis Visa. On 7:15 a.m. to 10 a.m., Rizal asked Father Visa for the Sacred Heart statuette which he carved when he was an Ateneo student. Father Antonio Rizal and Luis Taviel de Andrade joins Rizal for breakfast. Father Federico Farua arrived and told him, "Father, you are indeed a prophet." Father Jose Villaclara and Estanislao March visited Rizal, followed by Spanish journalist Santiago Matraes of El Heraldo de Madrid for an interview. On 12 noon up to 3:30 p.m., Rizal's time alone in the cell, where he had lunch, wrote letters, and wrote his last poem of 14 stanza entitled Mi Ultimo Adios or My Last Farewell, and hid it inside his alcohol burner. Upon 4 p.m., Rizal's mother visited him along with Maria, Trinidad, Narcisa, his niece Angelica, and little Mauricio, which is his favorite nephew. With grief and tenderness with their tearful eyes met, he asked his mother to seek the authorities' permission for the family to bury his body. After a few minutes, Doña Teodora left. One by one, the others came and he looked around his cell for something to give to each one. He gave Angelica a handkerchief. He gave Narcisa his wicker chair. To Mauricio a belt and a watch with chain. To Trinidad, who understood English, he gave the alcohol burner and whispered in English, "There is something in it." He had nothing left to give to Maria, but he confided to her that he would marry Josephine Bracken. Some sources say that he was allowed to marry Bracken 2 hours before execution, but until now was not proven. On the first hour of December 30, 1896, Father Baliger said he confessed, and upon Rizal's request, the father did a mass and he received Holy Communion. On 6:30 a.m. of December 30, that march from Fort Santiago to Bagumbayan begins. Full soldiers with bayoneted rifles led the procession, followed by Rizal, Taviel de Andrade, Fathers Villaclara and March, and other soldiers. 7 a.m., Rizal's, after arriving in the execution site at the Luneta de Bagumbayan, his pulse was checked by Dr. Felipe Ruiz Castillo, and it was perfectly normal. Rizal then shouted, "Consummatum est," which means, "It is done." 7:03 a.m., with the captain saying, "Fuego!" a volley of shot was fired. As the bullets pierced him, he turned right about and fell. On December 30 that afternoon, Narcisa, after a long search, discovered where her brother's body was secretly buried on an unmarked grave at the old unused Paco Cemetery. Forthwith, Spain's control of the Philippines ended in 1898. Though the country did not gain lasting independence until after World War II, Rizal remains a nationalist icon in the Philippines for helping the country take its first steps towards independence. That would be all. Thank you.